Good morning, Tony. All right, let's say a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I will note that everybody, all our board members are in attendance this morning for today's meeting. And, we'll move to approve the minutes from the August 25th, 2020 board meeting. If there's a second. Are there any questions or comments, discussions in that? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. I will then move to acknowledge the Secretary of State Directives 2020-17, 2020-18, 2020-19, 2020-17 is ballots for the November 3rd, 2020 general election. 2020-18 is the processing of absentee application requests, in 2020-19 the certified candidates for the President, Vice President of the United States. I would like to add as a walkout, without objection, 2020-20, which was issued over this weekend concerning the ruling down in Columbus as to the processing of absentee ballot applications via fax and PDF via email, and then the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals stay on that action. So there's no objection. I'd like to add that to the agenda. Is there a second? Second. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments about this? I guess I would have a comment, Chip or Tony, about to quarantine any emails that come in with a PDF. Is that each and every email with a PDF? Because you get quite a few of just ones you anticipate the application on. You're working on it.
I was gonna say, I think you almost get like some additional guidance from the Secretary of State's office, because not every PDF is automatically a vote by mail application, and could be important documents. So
our system also automatically quarantines emails with PDF that are from senders that haven't sent to us before. So we'll have to work with our IT department, our attorney's department, what actually will be automatically quarantined in our verification.
So work in progress.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And we're on to certification of the post-election audit for the August 4th, 2020 special election. Mr. Cleary, are you available online? Hello, Brian, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Brian?
Hello, can anyone hear me?
We can hear you, Brian. Can you hear us?
Okay, great. On September 2nd, we conducted a preliminary post-election audit for the August 4th, 2020 special election. There were a total of 1,078 ballots cast in this election. A total of 4 batches was randomly selected, consisting of 218 ballots cast in the audited contest. All results matched the official canvas for an accuracy rate of 100%.
Terrific. Are there any questions for Brian about this? Okay, hearing none, I will move to certify the post-election audit for the August 4th, 2020 special election. If there's a second.
Second.
Thank you. And all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Brian. Brent Lawler, are you on the line with us? Hello, Brent, can you hear us? Okay, Brent, I don't know if we're muted. Are we muted, Linda?
No, we are not.
Okay, great. All right, well, I can't seem to reach Brent, so Tony or Chantel, why don't you tee this off for us?
So September 4th was the last filing deadline for charter amendments for this upcoming November's election. And between our previous meeting and that deadline, I believe it's 9, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Can you hear me?
Brent?
Yeah.
Yes, we can. I guess you were muted before. Yes. Can you hear us?
I can now, yes.
Okay, great. Why don't you run the certification of the remaining issues and writing candidates for November 3rd, 2020, if you want to keep that up?
Sure, so the remaining issues for 2020 are those that have been filed since the last certification, and then we only have the one write-in for the congressional district to go to the ballot that we need to certify. The rest of the write-ins are going to be presidential candidates, with the Secretary of State will certify.
Okay. Okay, so that, and there are no issues with the issues as far as,
No, the issues are all good.
they're all good? Great. And, having-
Just be the certified basis.
Okay, I'll move to certify the remaining issues and writings, candidates for the November 3rd, 2020 presidential general election is set forth in our agenda. Second? Second. Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Lawler? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. I will move to acknowledge the withdrawal of an issue from the November 30th, 2020 presidential election. That issue relates to the city of Mayfield Village, I believe.
Yeah.
Mayfield Village, they had a issue on the ballot concerning compensation of elected officials. They've withdrawn that issue. If there's a second? Second. Thank you. Any question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And on to our personnel agenda. Thank you, Brent.
Welcome.
So we have 2 items on our personnel agenda today. The first deals with the observance of 2 of the holidays that are coming up, the Columbus Day holiday and the Veterans Day holiday. And like similar, really in every general election, we end up asking to move the observance of that holiday to a different day because it conflicts with the operations of the election. In particular, in a presidential general election, the election official manual has open for voting on Columbus Day. So we will obviously be busy doing that. And then the Veterans Day holiday follows post-election day, but that's right in the window of time when you're processing provisional ballots, post-election absentees, and getting ready for certification. We want to, as we kind of done in the past, move this around the Christmas holiday. So we would do one day before Christmas Eve, the 24th, and then the following Monday, December 28th. The building would actually be closed to the public as we observe those holidays. The second item, or is there any questions on that?
Well, I don't have, I'm fine with the suggested recommendations from you and Tony. It's going to impact them, as Linda Walker pointed out to me, this will impact a meeting date. We have a December 28th meeting. So we'll have to at some point before we leave decide what day we're going to want to do. That's right.
Yeah, I believe the meeting was set for, reviewing the audit for the November election, so we select that date, it's not. So we can move that to whatever is available for you guys.
Okay, we can, I think it's probably appropriate to do that to the internet, email, just an email chain asking when we're all available. So, all right, thank you.
And then the second item on the personnel agenda deals with overtime compensation for our permanent employees here at the Board of Elections. Currently in our policy manual, what happens is we are paid our permanent employees for a 35-hour work week. We have 1 hour unpaid lunch period every day, which gives you 8 hours for the day. When they do get into an overtime situation, hours 36 through 40, we give employees time, either compensatory time or exchange time at straight rate. And then once they exceed 40 hours for the week, they get into a time and a half accrual situation in accordance with the Fair Labor Standards Act. What we are asking for is for those first 5 hours that typically are straight rate earn of time, comp time, or exchange time, to have a straight rate pay for the employees. That's for a couple of reasons. One is we have an increase in the amount of overtime that we are working at this point in time because of the pandemic. We have increased increased vote by mail. The polling locations, working on those to get them set up in a socially distant manner. Recruitment of poll workers is not what it usually is. So people are putting more time in earlier in the process. And then what happens is when employees the permits earn all this time off, when we are planning for the future elections, post-election, and everyone's taking time off, which they do need some time off. However, it becomes difficult to plan when you have such massive amounts of time off. So this plan would be covered with our current budget allocation. We have vacancies that we're running through with for the year. So we'd be able to cover that without any additional appropriation from the county. This would not be utilizing CARES dollars, it'd be our current budget. And it would be for a defined period of time, 5-day period starting today, going through certification of the election, which we anticipate having the highest volume of work hours for this election cycle.
Sure. Considering the special circumstances around this election, certainly will be historic through this pandemic. Obviously, there's a lot of added stress on our employees, and their desire to run this election flawlessly is utmost importance to us. I do support this. I do also support it for the entirety of the staff, including the deputy director and director.
Thank you, Mr. Wonderowski. I do have a question too. I get confused with non-exempt and exempt. Non-exempt is the one that seems it's going to significantly impact, right? As opposed to exempt employee.
Actually, it'll impact both equally. So the non-exempt, the non-management staff. So our exempt employees basically are managers and our assistant managers at level.
You're not director and deputy.
So the non-exempt employee, most of the rest of the agency, they're the ones who, when they exceed 40 hours in a week, they go to a time and a half accrual of compensatory time, where the exempt employees, once they exceed 40 hours, they continue to earn time, but they earn that at a straight rate.
So just summarize this to me. Non-exempt employees under this proposal would get straight time as opposed to straight compensatory time between 36 and 40 hours.
Non-exempt employees would get straight rate pay.
Pay, right?
36 hours, 36 through 40.
No comp time.
No comp time.
Prior to that, they could get comp time.
Right. In fact, they did not have a choice.
They had to get comp.
The agency had a rule to get comp time.
So this proposal would give them straight time with no choice. They don't get a choice to take comp now. They got to take pay.
Correct.
Okay. And then those exempt employees after 40 hours get time and a half comp time.
The non-exempt get a time and a half comp time for all hours above 40.
And that doesn't change on this.
It does not change.
Exempt employees, such as yourselves, and managers and assistant managers, what changes there?
So they will also, so right now, hours 36 through 40, they get exchange time.
Which means take time off.
Exactly. Take
Right.
time off.
Do you have to take it within a certain period of time, or is it like accrued compensatory?
Because it's like accrued compensate, they can get up to 140 hours that they can carry. Chantilly and I keep going through any exchange time, but all the other employees do. So they now, those first 5 hours would get compensated at straight rate pay. And then once they exceed 40, it would be what their current rules are. They would accrue time off, exchange time at straight rate, so, for hours, anything over 40. And then that would go towards their allotment of 140 hours that they can bill.
I see.
It's a fairly standard type, doesn't apply to exempt employees, right? So you're saying this change applies by reason of the county's rules around exchange time. Is that what I'm hearing?
So it's not even the county, but the county allows employees to earn overtime pay. So this agency,
All employees, including,
no, not they're exempt.
okay.
Yeah, no, they're not exempt. Yeah, so the county's exempt employees, they accrue time, but they do it at straight rate.
And this is going to do the same thing. I'm confused.
This only deals with hours 36
30.
through 40, and the board is going to be given pay instead of giving time. That's the only difference. So prior to this, every employee, whether at 1.5 hours for the time time or 1 hour greater time. You see some type of exchange time for that. This is going to be paying them instead, hours 36
For a 5-week period,
5 pay periods.
5 pay period, and when does that commence, when is it proposed?
If approved today, and then it would go through November 21st, and we certify the 24th. So it cover now through certifying the election.
I'm anticipating that employees would support this, they wouldn't object to it.
I would think that they would be overwhelming support for this.
And how does that compare to other district boards, if you're aware? Do other boards do that?
Other boards of elections actually already paid the overtime for their employees. They hold them and pay at the end of the year. There's a wide range of how boards of elections.
And how do we make sure to make it clear that because of COVID and the pandemic, that this is a one-time, effort and that it's not
It's called
expected?
pandemic pay.
So make it's very clear that
This
it's
is one time.
Yes.
And so these individuals, while they'll get paid for those hours, you anticipate they're gonna be working over 40 hours anyway, so they're gonna count time also.
They definitely,
Yes.
right. So we already have, the health department's pretty much mandated on overtime starting this week. The election officials department's mandated on overtime. We have, because of the volume of vote by mail applications, we're actually running an operation in the basement of this building now, opening. Brent and some of his supervisors are overseeing that, and that's a combination of temporary employees and permanent employees. We're pulling down for a few hours a day to do that, but then they still have to keep up with the current work, so basically now they're in an overtime situation.
Mr. Chairman, let's remember that we, went above and beyond to make sure that we were able to recruit poll workers by increasing compensation for them, temporary staff, and people in this building are obviously no less important.
Sure.
And I just wanted to say in advance, thank our workers for all that they're doing. It's just unprecedented in terms of what we're all experiencing. And obviously this is a presidential cycle and it's always a lot more work and so forth. So I just want to say I support this and I do appreciate in advance all the great work that our staff is doing.
And I will note that you reported to us, you've talked to our director of HR, Ms. Acosta, as well as Ms. Susi. She signed off on Ms. Acosta as well as Ms. Susi as far as the money's have it. We're not going to debt over this, so.
Right, so we purposely build caps into it so that no one can get more than 5 hours in a week, 10 hours for the pay period. So we know ultimately what the highest price tag could be. And that was important because you have to be prudent with these tax dollars and make sure that, you're just not.
Mr. Frost, any other comments or questions?
No, I want to thank the director. I had a chance to talk to him on Friday. We're going to be on that. We're bringing it before us.
Terrific. You need a motion on that. Then I will move to approve the personnel agenda as set forth on our agenda in regards to compensation for exempt and non-exempt employees. That includes all exempt, all non-exempt employees. There's a second? Second. Thank you. Any other question or comment? Hearing none, then all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. And now we're on to new business.
A few items of new business. The first item on new business is vote by mail ballot collection and working with Chantil with this increased volume of vote by mail applications that we're getting and knowing what we witnessed this past spring in our parking lot with the cars coming down, the craziness of trying to keep voters safe and having people come down. We're in with the pressures on the post office now with this increased volume. We are coming up with an initiative in which, similar to how we go out to assisted living facilities with bipartisan teams and collect vote by mail ballots, we would like to do the same thing at 6 additional locations throughout the county on a temporary basis, setting out teams of bipartisan employees on a set schedule to collect vote by mail applications as well as vote by mail ballots, starting after the opening of absentee and going up to the final weekend before election day.
For a lot of, Mr.
No, please.
For a lot of, this plan, you guys put together was thorough, well thought out. I certainly support this effort. I received something in the post office, or in the mail last week from the post office, that's it right there, saying that, I mean, even they're concerned about their timeliness of their delivery. So, in the best way possible, we want to assure that all votes be delivered here and all votes get counted, and this helps us to achieve that. So certainly something I support, and I will, I know there'll be further discussion, but I will make the motion
To adopt the proposed.
to adopt the proposed plan.
Correct.
I'll second that motion, and I just have a couple questions.
Please, it's open for discussion.
I certainly am very concerned about our ability to have a smooth and well-administered election, given the volume of vote by mail applications and obviously the ballots that we will receive. So I'm certainly in favor of having additional collection opportunities, since we're limited to one drop box in our parking lot. How did you guys identify the 6 locations? Just wanted to know how you guys came up with those, the placement of those collection locations.
So a few of the things that we looked at is we wanted to, so pretty much we're north here where we're located. So now you have east, west, and south that we have to deal with. And what we wanted to do is come up with locations in the suburbs where you have at least one west, one east, and one south. And then in the city of Cleveland being our biggest anchor city here, the same thing, something that is west, east, and south. We wanted to find locations that were on a bus route, and we wanted to utilize government buildings. And so when you're trying to utilize a government building, we know that City of Cleveland has a library system and the county has a library system. So we thought we already partnered with them to be point locations and to be training locations and do voter education drives. So we thought that they potentially would be good partners for an initiative like this. Most people know where their local library is, and these libraries are accessible by public transportation. In trying to determine that, we put the look at a map of the library systems, and we tried to get, at least for the county libraries, something that was in similar proximity of travel time from those libraries here to our board offices. And so by doing that and trying to go east, west, south, we came up with the 3 locations, and they are within 20 to 25 minutes from those libraries to here. So that was pretty good that we were able to get it within that similar range. And looking at the city of Cleveland, we wanted a similar type thing. Kind of, we know that because we're housed in Cleveland, maybe a little bit closer travel time. And so the 3 locations that we identified there are between 11 and one is the furthest. We have 11 and 12 and 23 minutes. But trying to keep that, so not something that was too close, that it makes sense for those individuals to come here, but to go out into the communities a little bit, try to keep them equidistant by travel time versus mileage, because that's kind of really what you have to take into consideration when you're trying to come here. Public transportation, good public partners that we already have. Those are some of the key things as we're trying to figure out where to put these.
When I know at one time you guys were looking at having Dropbox locations potentially, but there were 5 potential locations you were thinking about. I'm just wondering, did you use the same sort of criteria to figure out these locations as you had initially thought about for potential additional Dropboxes, or is there an extra location, or is my memory failing me on that?
So when we were, some of our initial talks about a permanent Dropbox versus this temporary collection plan was we thought maybe 5 we would do something, but we didn't dive deep into kind of where we would put those. That was kind of for that was almost suburbs, east, west, south, and then Cleveland would just be east and west, where we would kind of be in the middle. Where we've come from there is we've added an additional Cleveland, so we're uniform in east, west, south, and both city of Cleveland proper and the suburbs of the city of Cleveland.
Just one quick question. I don't know how much of the public's listening today, but what is our normal absentee ballot application point about this time period for the presidential election compared to what we actually have sitting ready to be,
Sure. So
distribution?
if we look at 2016, on September 14th, 2016, this agency had processed 13,259 vote by mail applications. We had staff in here working on Saturday, so that's our closest, being September 12th. And September 12th, we have processed in 221,324 applications.
What was
So
that number again?
221,324.
Excuse me, Barbie, that does not include duplications. I mean, you crossed out the duplications.
Correct. Those are actually, right, not duplicates, individuals who are in line to have a ballot mailed to them come October 6th.
Because it's my understanding that maybe close to 40% of your applications coming in now are duplicates as a result of many organizations, including the Secretary of State, mailing applications.
Correct. So, yeah, so for example, on Saturday, staff, they entered in 10,130 ballot applications and an additional 4,052 duplicates. So we're getting, it seems to be running, they're putting in, staff are processing about 15,000 applications a day with about 5,000 being duplicates and 10,000 being traveled for, yeah.
So, this almost quarter of a million number of that vote by mail applications, you said there's no duplicates in this? number?
Correct. That's already been washed against, and so those are good to go.
And what was the original number you responded, Mr. Orlowski, about, typically at 13,000,
13,259, that's where we were
2006.
November 14th, 2016.
Right.
Over 200,000 more.
So have you mentioned you reach out to libraries? Where are you at with libraries?
So I have had some preliminary conversations with the director of the county library as well as the director of the Cleveland Public Library. And then I kind of told them what we're interested in doing. They are extremely supportive. They want to, just as they always have, partnered with us. They're ready to partner with us again, even working with their connections on traffic control and traffic safety with the local municipalities where these are housed, making their building available and open to us if there were to be inclement weather. They welcome us inside the building, as well as their grounds and logistics people there. They will have them queued up to work with our staff to work through all the things that we need to work through to make this work. So they are very supportive.
Do they have to get permission from their boards or?
So the city of Cleveland on the 17th, I believe it's Thursday, they have a board meeting in which the director will go forward before that board and recommend participation in this. And I did not, the county library, they said there wasn't an issue with it.
A couple other questions. How are the hours and days determined? I think you're approximately suggesting 54 hours to have these temporary pickup locations.
So what we wanted is we wanted consistency to not confuse the voters. So one for the voters and also for the campaign, so they know exactly what this would be. So we look for every other day, so Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. The library is open on those days of the week, so we wanted that consistency, so everybody understood what the days were. We wanted to stay at the set locations that we found, because again, we want people to understand and not be confused on a week-to-week basis where they're going to go. And as far as the hours, we thought we would try to capture the lunch period, lunch break through post work. So from noon till 6 p.m. You get people, whether they are working, they could go on again their lunch break or on the way home from work, as well as in the communities. It's just something where they can make their way there throughout the afternoon and have a nice time to access it.
I do have a few, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Chair. Will we have, I assume there's a security plan for this as well. Are we able to discuss and just generally what that would look like? Without giving, security.
So
Jessica, were you?
I was thinking, we can share very broad, probably on the field of what.
If you're not, I just want to make sure that we are establishing for the record that there is in fact a security plan for this. So if you're uncomfortable going into detail, that's fine. But if you want the record to, for us not to address it, we're not just going to have bipartisan teams out there with potentially ballots and temporary ballot boxes or whatever and not have security. So that's fine if you don't want to give any specific details.
I will say that you're correct, there will be bipartisan teams of employees out there. We want these 4 people per location to cover break or rest period. And the bag that would be utilized would be something that we would be able to seal with a security seal and log the number of all of those people.
Great. Thank you. I'm just interested in some security pieces that is up there. Thank you.
Director, and thank you for putting this together, given that volume of absentee vote applications that we have already. I'm certainly concerned about our ability. Voters can choose to return those ballots many ways, and one that's convenient for a lot of voters is to drop them off. And I'm concerned about the log jam here. But I respect and understand the Secretary's decision. I personally was concerned with the idea of our ability to protect and ensure the safety, security, and integrity of people's ballots if they're sitting in drop boxes remote from this location where our full-time management staff is not. And I'm not saying multiple drop boxes couldn't work in the future, but I think with our time and ability to plan before this presidential election, this is a very reasonable way to make sure it can be clear, voters can know where they can drop off their ballot, but most importantly to me, that we're protecting their ballots, that they are being dropped off to your designee. The law allows a voter to drop their ballot off to you, or your person you have deputized, your designee. And in my view, that means we have full-time trained staff at a location, and that's usually this location. But this is a very thorough plan we put before us to enable us to spread that reach and make it even more convenient, while voters can still return their ballots any other way they choose. So I want to thank you for the time you put into this. I do support the proposal.
Great. David, any other questions? I do have some other questions, and I know Anna Joe and I have been through 4 presidential election cycles. This is maybe Dave's first run. Second, all right. It is a highly partisan time when it starts, and I think we do a very good job working through this. Undoubtedly, as you're aware, there is litigation in the federal courthouse over drop boxes, and litigation in the state court over drop boxes. And I think if I last looked at the briefing schedule, by the 23rd, all the parties have to have the briefs in. I anticipate the courts will start ruling sometime thereafter about this. I think the idea is wonderful, and I support it, but I have questions because whatever decision we make, I'm pretty certain is going to end up in court. You're going to have counties across the state that may have not thought of this, but they're going to learn about it and may start considering it. The way I view this, and they're temporary drop boxes. That's what they are. I mean,
That's not,
well, and how is that different?
these locations, I'm sorry for interrupting, these locations are manned with bipartisan teams of people. Drop boxes are not manned with anyone.
I understand.
There's no box here. That's not, what I don't want to do is confuse the issue. This is really about making sure that ballots are delivered to this post office, to this building safely, and that all ballots are counted.
Certainly, and it's a different form. I mean,
I just don't want to, it's semantics, I just don't want to confuse my.
that's what happens in court. That's what we make it a good record right now. I mean, the questions that have been asked are good questions because you're making a record. And, we're going to have to, maybe there'll be a transcript about this and someone will get the recording and do that. I'm just anticipating this is what happens and how do we address it. I'm not opposed to it. I think these are questions we need to ask. For example, I'm assuming you've talked to Mr. Musson and his staff about the authority you have to do this, legal authority, correct? Yeah. Mr. Musson, do you want to address that?
Sure, and I think, we're going to discuss potential litigation. We should go into that session.
No, I think it's important. There's an issue before we talk about litigation, because to me, litigation can't be the reason we don't do what we need to do for efficient, fair, transparent elections administration. So I think we need to talk about some of this stuff here, but to your point, if we know about litigation that's pending or something.
Yes.
I'm just saying, I think we have a duty as board members to figure out how to administer the election smoothly so that we can make sure every ballot cast is counted, and we can't be stunned or paralyzed or in fear because there's going to be litigation filed. But I want part of that. I just think part of that discussion
That's
happening
true.
out here.
Board members, well, I just don't want to litigate it out here.
Okay.
I just had a question about the legal authority. I'm sure you've looked into it, Mr. Musson.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and I believe, Mr. Ross correctly stated the law, the director can receive these ballots and his designees are recipients of those.
I know another issue that has come up in the ongoing with is equal protection issues, okay? Or whether, where do you locate these boxes or federal and state litigation, but in this case, the location of the pickup sites. Is that something that could potentially be challenged? I'm not asking you whether it will be or not.
I think they can challenge, I'm really getting on the lawsuit. But that is something that might be questioned, but I think, and I don't want to get too out into it, but as long as it's not a disparate impact of some sort of favoritism or disfavoritism to certain groups that are recognized in the laws,
What is the standard? Don't we just have to have a reasonable and rational basis for, I don't know what the standard is for, is this for equal, if you're saying you're making equal protection?
Potentially claim.
I mean, as long as we have some rational basis for making the decisions, we should be in good shape. I'm asking that question. I'm not a constitutional scholar, but.
and that's my understanding, unless there's some disparate impact of so that somehow some group is impacted differently than another group, then the group starts to that. But personally, I think the initial showing.
Thank you. And I just have another question in regards to, I'm guessing you can ramp this up fairly quickly. Correct, Tony, to get this going, if there's approval?
So I just need to really have good logistical conversations with the library systems. We haven't, everything has been at a high level with them. So we need to start starting those discussions with them at that level of detail, actually the execution part of it. And that'll take some time, as well as for these, we have not started recruiting the staff that are going to do this at this point in time with 6 locations and wanting to have at least 4 people as 24 individuals. That'll take some time to identify and get that. So obviously, the more time we have, the better we can do that, as well as we haven't purchased things like kind of a pop-up tents, get those types of items. We've been waiting to discuss this today, and then we'll start to pull the trigger and move on that, as well as some separate collection bags that we're looking potentially to get. Just needs some lead time in order to procure those.
Finally, another question. This is proposing to start on October, what was the date? 13th. We meet on the 28th. Is there any reason we have to approve it today that we can't approve it on the 28th? Obviously, this is something that will be reported about. I'm sure the Secretary of State's office is going to learn about it, other boards of elections, presidential campaign committees, voting right activist groups, the attorneys involved in litigation, both in the Attorney General's office as well as the ACLU and others. Is there a reason we can't just kind of float this out here, see what the reactions are, and then come back to the 28th and take action on that?
So if I were to, on the 28th, if that's when we were to start to procure and recruit and educate voters, we'd be in a rough spot, I think, at that point. That's, because at that point in time, we're only 1 week out from the opening of early in person. And so it's just, again, we are so crunched at this point in time to get things done. Going that close just makes it a little bit harder
Chairman,
to execute it.
with all due respect, and I appreciate your comments,
Go ahead, sir.
but I certainly want to, I don't want to be a board that's reactive and waiting for other people to chime in. We're charged with making sure every ballot gets counted here and collected, and that's what we're doing. There's no need to wait to have any further discussion or see what the courts do on a case that's not even remotely close to what we're doing here. Because those deals are actual drop boxes. So there's a motion second on the floor. I'd like to call.
Oh, I just have a few other questions.
Go ahead.
So, I mean, my comments are, I don't know that there anything prevent the staff from recruiting individuals, getting site visits and everything else before the 28th, even having press releases and news releases available to issue on that very day if this is approved. I don't know what the hurry is necessarily, because I do anticipate, my experience, that other parties will weigh in. They'll say that they weren't consulted or discussed with, they weren't included in this process, and what's the rush when you can do it on the 28th, including the Secretary of State's office, with his ongoing litigation. So that's my only
It's not a
concern.
partisan issue.
It isn't, I
It's an
just,
election administration issue, and that's what we're charged with doing. It's not partisan.
I understand, these are just my thoughts as one independent board member. I don't expect everybody to.
Here, I
agree to
work
it.
for the voters.
Sure, I
Here, I
understand,
work for the voters of Cuyahoga County, all
understood.
of them. We all do.
Any other questions or comments on the motion?
Yes.
If you like.
I just wanted to commend Tony Cantil for thinking out of the box proposal. I want to help people understand we are simply just trying to do our jobs here and to serve the voters well. So I just want to say that. Rob?
Thank you. I would just add, with roughly 18 times the number of applications for what we've seen before, it's not hypothetical. I do think it's important to move today. I've seen a lot of election litigation, and I've seen judges be creative with solutions that, as learned as these judges are, they're not elections professionals. And so it is my hope that election professionals, such as yourselves, putting together a thoughtful plan that respects and abides by the Secretary's ruling on drop boxes, and yet gives us a manner to get this volume of ballots back in whatever way voters choose to return them. It's my hope that those involved in these various litigations may look at this and say, well, there is a solution that many can agree on. I don't think we ever get everybody agreeing on everything, let alone everybody agreeing on anything, any one thing. But I do think that it's prudent to move forward today, and it's my hope that it sets an example for a manner in which boards of elections can accommodate if they are seeing a similar influx and are concerned about their ability to handle that volume over their current operations. So thank you.
Great, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. I look forward to recruitment.
Forward recruitment. Okay. So as we are now diving in, forward training started on the 4th, and previously we had reported that from our surveys that we had about 70% of our returning workers who were interested in coming back and working the polls. Now that we've actually reached out to them and said, okay, time to follow up on that, what we have found is about 50% of the return, 50% of the existing workers are interested in returning back to us. So obviously 20% less, but at this point, we do have a nice pile of applications that we were able to work through to fill that void. We have, so we have currently about 1,100 employees that we have placed for the election, and we have sent out over 3,000 emails to workers to have them either sign up to take online training or to attend an in-person class. So we reminded them again on Friday through an email saying you need to go ahead and we provided the link, you need to sign up. And we will be sending a robocall to these individuals tomorrow, say, hey, look at your email, you need to sign up. But above that, we have a pool of applications. So one of the things a few things that staff are doing. One is the Secretary of State's vote by mail application. He asked a question at the bottom of the application, are you interested in being a poll worker? So starting Friday, staff started to make copies of those applications that in fact someone did check that they were interested, and they provided us with contact information on that application. So we have to keep all those grouped together. So we can vote their first and foremost, get the vote by mail application. So that's what its main thing is. But so we're making these copies that we are passing on to the election official department. So that's a group of people that we can reach out and contact to, as well as we have probably from the Secretary of State's website about 2,000 applications that we still need to work through. So we have a pool of applications. We're working through that. Starting today, Chantel and I met with the election officials department on Friday, and the registration department is going to dedicate at least an hour per day with their staff doing data entry of applications. Because one of the first things you have to do is you have to take the application through the voter registration database to ensure that they're in fact registered in this county, and then figure out what their party affiliation is so we can go ahead and place them in. So registration, who are very good at data entry, are going to be doing a lot of that work to help the election officials department, and they'll do that on an ongoing basis until we don't need them to do that anymore. So, so that will help, because every time we do that, we can put more links out into the universe for individuals to go ahead and stuff sign up for class. So this will be an interesting week. We are giving basically the returning workers until a week from today to complete their online training. And at that point, we're pretty much going to consider that they're not interested in working. And we're going to move on and find new bodies to plug these holes. But we're also at the same time not waiting on them. We're looking to overtrain to ultimately land. So that's where we are with poll worker recruitment, and we're trying to work with the staff on it, create kind of like a nice little dashboard so we can at any point in time you guys can get a easy look at where are we, where are our numbers, some of the partisan numbers that we have in there. So
I just want to say, as far as the dashboard, we'll have something for you guys to review probably on Wednesday. Program for us to us, so I can see if I can see it, just make sure that we're covering all the statistics. I know it's not the one question that we get asked. So yeah, I'm not sure that the same is true for you guys as well.
We can posting the same dashboard information on the website.
But we certainly can.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we have been overrun with calls. You know, what are you guys doing? We aren't hearing anything from you. You know, what's going on? I said, we're working. You know, so I think people know that, but it would be helpful because people do have to use the website.
Yeah, we'll come up with a way and place for it, you know, probably in the beginning or something like that. Just so everyone's aware.
Just a question on training. Are you satisfied with the number of training classes we have set up, the locations, the availability of those classes?
we have a lot of classes. My concern is I need more people sitting in those classes.
I think it's a little bit different. It's a lot hard for us to sit and provide what we, it's hard to anticipate because a large majority of individuals are going to be going to an online training session. And that's something that is just thrown out by the Secretary of State's office this election. Something we've been pushing for a very long time. We're very excited to do it, but it is the first time that we're doing it. We don't have historical data to base our information on what we're going with. What we feel. But I do feel like we have definitely have enough classes scheduled, and it just becomes which the staff is, we kind of adjust with a few things in the staff working on.
Does beg the question, how many of our older poll workers are having trouble with access, either getting access to the online classes or knowing how to get access to them? So,
yeah. So, yes, good points. And that's where we're quite a robocall, get calls that are having problems. We are getting some calls from individuals, walking them through how to get the technical computer part of it. I think Peter James just produced some new additional self-serve type things out there that's going to the workers saying, hey, read through this first before you call us. And then if it still doesn't work, try to do that. So
We have dedicated temporary employees that we assign to just answer telephone calls, troubleshoot issues that individuals are having in anticipation for an increased volume of individuals having issues. At this point, I would say that we haven't been overwhelmed with telephone calls or emails about not being able to access the system. I think it's simply that we're not used to this process. We're used to us calling and scheduling them for our training class. I will say that with the online, well, historically, we've had approximately 20 to 30% ratio rate in average training class, and that has been reduced down to about 5%. That's just one reason we wanted online training, because when you can schedule yourself, you don't have to call an individual. There's lots of data out there. You don't have to talk to an individual and tell them that you want to cancel, and you can do it like an online meeting instead. Something about personal growth, I guess it comes in with this, but that is one thing that is a reason why we have so many other openings of training classes. So I don't want you to see the number of openings we have in the training classes. I think those are all open. We simply were accounting for our 20 to 30% historical dropout rate, which we've seen reduced to 5%. Sorry, I just
I just have a question also, if I could. So I think the last meeting we got a report that we had 7,700 recruits or people who had signed up or potentially signed up. Obviously, we need people to pass the training in order for them to ultimately be counted as workers. But do we have a good sense that our number in terms of recruitment is generally where it needs to be for this stage of the game?
So we do it, yes. So we have a lot of applications, and what happened since that meeting is we did more washing of the data. So through that, probably about 500 or so, maybe we found that they were duplicates, but still being a good number. And the applications are still coming in. So I think we have the applications. It's working through them to get them into the training. I think when it's all said and done, we're going to have more new workers than what we had thought when the process started. That's okay. As long as we have a mix of old and new, we'll get through the day. But it's not like it's not like in some of the years past where we're short and we can't find anybody. We have the apps.
We do not have that issue at this moment in time.
Correct. We have the apps, and it's just, again, it's a matter of working through two to see how many of them are already registered. And that's why another thing we talked about with staff, you got to get through those now because it's still October 5th is closed registration. So if they have the interest, and the only piece they are missing is the registration. We have a way to fix that to make it work.
Thank you.
A question in regards to you made a comment about people into the training rooms, because I imagine that's a good foretells how many people are actually going to be at the polls then. Because if they're going to take the time to do the training, they're going to take the time to be a poll.
Yes, that I always rely more so on the train number because yes, it's easy to say you want to be a poll worker, and then all of a sudden, I don't know if I'm going to be 2.5 hours of training. And when they do commit to that, it's like now they're basically not 100%, but they're definitely more all in.
So that may be one of the some of the information maybe that will be on the dashboard about how many are taking training.
Yeah, but I don't think necessarily the issue right now is that we're having individuals. The bottleneck that we're having is actually we have approximately 300 applications from individuals. Being able to have on staff here against the registration record and data enter that into our new scheduling system. I think it's where the bottleneck is. And once I'm confident, staff yesterday, we're doing registration on that. I'm confident we'll be able to get caught up and be able to we'll start to see the numbers of individuals in training classes increase a lot this week.
Yeah. And one of the things I'm hopeful are there's 2,000 returning workers who can take online training. We have a link in their email box right now. And if they just go ahead and they do that number could go can jump up very quickly in a short period of time. And that's what, one of the things that we're hopeful to see.
Great.
I think part of this dashboard will be very helpful for the elections officials department to know exactly where they are, for you and the deputy director to be able to track it at every point, and for us as board members to provide the oversight.
Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none, moving on to polling locations.
One location, so until a curveball comes along, we're locked in. We actually ended up with 295 polling locations. So we were, in March, we were scheduled for 298 and we landed at 295. So we did what we said we were going to do. We're going to keep it pretty darn close. The number of precincts impacted is 89 precincts. And in those 89 precincts, a little over 83,000 voters who will be voting in a different location, which is a large number. But unfortunately, it's kind of been close to some of the numbers that we've had the last two elections. So, that's where we look at with those. Karen is overseeing the collection of all our organizing, the notification that we'll be sending out. So she's working with John Eddy on getting the PDF maps up to date. I believe our interactive map on our website is up to date, so we're just working on the PDF ones. The letter has been drafted, and we're just going to get that finalized today. Fiscal is working with a mail house who will go ahead and get the letters out. And then what we hope is come Friday or Monday, either this Friday or next Monday, to be able to get these letters dropped in the mail.
Are these mostly, I'm sorry to interrupt you, are these in Cleveland primarily or elsewhere? And my other question is whether we're reaching out to leaders, community leaders, or, whether they're ward leaders or council people or whatever, to make sure that we're covering all of our bases so people are informed and they don't become upset. That's a big number, 83,000, and it's important to get them noticed, but also any affected or other stakeholders, if we can notify them, it would be helpful too.
Definitely. So I haven't done the analysis of how many Cleveland versus not, but when we were throughout this process, I think it's been kind of 50-50. So it has a part of the notification will be emails to each mayor, clerk of council. For Cleveland, it'll be a little different. Each individual council person will get an email, as well as to the two major political parties, and then state senators and state reps who appear on a ballot in Cuyahoga County. They also will get that email. And so the email will also include sample letters, and when they're starting to get phone calls, they look at this letter, they can actually reference it. That's so that we want to make sure we're bringing everybody into the loop, because we need everyone to help us get the word out. So that's pretty much, unless there's another question, that's poll locations.
And now to voting in senior assisted living facilities.
Yeah, I'm just going to provide a brief update of what the health department staff has been working on in terms of our senior assisted living facilities. We do have a total of 96 locations that we have historically serviced in the past. 66 of those facilities have already selected, based on the survey that was sent out, to have their residents go by mail. We have 27 facilities who will be identifying bipartisan teams within our organization to actually assist their voters, more of a in-person type of voting assistance with those. And that leaves 2 facilities that are undecided, so we do come to circle back to the next week. And then we have 1 facility that hasn't responded at all yet. So I think that we are in a very good spot as far as the response of the procedure of the survey. There were about 20 facilities we had to reach out to and call, but we were able to hold their directors at these locations. What we've seen over the past couple of weeks since the last board meeting, when we initially sent the survey out, is that originally we had about 35 locations that wanted to do their individual bipartisan teams of workers that go that route, and that number has increased by about 7 or 8. That has to do with them being able to find individuals within that facility who want to assist with that. So they're kind of maybe on a switch to the vote by election. The ballot department has started working on a PowerPoint training sessions that will be available electronically and through like a Zoom town hall type feature for those 27 locations as far as deputizing your individuals to be able to work in bipartisan teams to assist the voters. There'll be a separate PowerPoint that's provided just to go over the ins and outs of mail applications that we will receive and if we're scheduling pickups or not. So I feel like we're in a really good spot at this point.
Jill, question about, we're going to bipartisan teams to assist possibly in those deputized, people will be deputized?
Yeah, those will be employees of the actual senior assisted facilities that we will then deputize to move forward with assisting the voters and marking their ballots and filling out their voter application.
And maybe you commented this, I missed it, but we'll have bipartisan teams in picking these ballots up at some point.
Yes, we will schedule a delivery and the pickup of those ballots. Or they will, for the individuals who are doing, 27 locations that are doing for their staff bipartisan teams. But I mentioned that, most of them will be us. This time, instead of scheduling our staff to be there, to vote for the residents of the facilities, it will be more of a schedule that shows when we'll be there to drop off ballot packs and when we'll be there.
Any other questions or comments?
One thing I just want to quickly get on, is just we're talking about all these applications, but ultimately those lead to a ballot going out in the mail. I want you to know how we're trying to prepare to get these ballots out. First off, this Friday is Yule Count already, 46 days out. We have just over 2,500 individuals who will be receiving the Yule Count ballot. So proofing is going along well for ballot. When we finish proofing the ballot, the physical proof of it is not really done until we take those and we run them through some of our equipment. And through that, we make sure that everything is reading the physical layout of the ballot works. When that's done, that's called approval to print passing. We are scheduled to be done with the approval to print on September 28th. At that point in time, when we give that approval to print, that the ballot vendor, so for us it's Midwest, can start to print ballots. We've been working with Midwest though. How can we, what is a potential slowdown or a plug point for them in ballot creation? And some of that is the actual identification envelope that voters get, where we print variable data. So your name, your address, and your city work precinct. We are going to provide Midwest Direct, I think actually starting at the end of this week, with some ballot files. So of these 221 that we know are good, we can send them who these voters are, and they can start to produce the identification envelopes. They can print that variable data on those envelopes. It takes longer to print those than it does the actual ballot themselves. Those always happen at two different pieces of equipment, and then they get married together on the inserting machines that go on. We ordered 700,000 new envelopes for this election, and the vendor who printed those will be delivering those to Midwest Direct this Friday. So they will have all those envelopes. They will go ahead and now Midwest will be able to start printing the ID envelopes so they can get a head start on that. So then when they finally do get the approval to print, they can start running the ballot file and keep everything in order, put it on the inserting machines that always goes on it, and build the ballot packs. So they really won't be able to start building the full packs until, we'll say, September 29th. So the 28th, we can give them that file. They will print every day. And then what we will do is on the Monday before the opening on October 5th, we will deliver with Midwest our first batch of ballots to the post office. And we talked through through a conversation with the post office, Midwest, and us. We can take it there that day before. Nothing goes in the mail that day. And then on Tuesday, letter carriers will already have ballots in their bags to deliver to people's households. We won't be able to have all 221, who knows, at some point it's maybe 300,000. Those all will go out on day one, just a capacity issue. But 5 weeks in, we will have that Friday or Saturday, the big initial push will be out. And then hopefully at that point, we anticipate we'll be in a day-to-day. whatever asks come in, we'll process them, those ballots get out in the next business. So,
That's good. And people have been asking me, when am I gonna get my ballot? When am I gonna get my ballot? I'm just hoping one thing, and I've been getting calls on too, probably my colleagues have as well. People are asking, thinking because of anticipating logjam, can I bring every ballot for my mommy and my mother, my old elderly mother and all of her neighbors? That was the last thing, right? I mean, can we issue some sort of, the week that the ballots are going out? Just a reminder to people, it will save us down the line for hearings. We're gonna have somebody bringing, ballots they're not supposed to be. I think people just think that they're being helpful and they don't realize. So maybe just a reminder of some sort. And I did want to commend our media partners for doing a lot of really good informational pieces. And our media folks, our outreach folks, we can continue to use the media to help us get the word out on voter mistakes or things they should be aware of, aware of. But very concerned about, people, trying to be helpful. And I've gotten a lot of calls about, I can bring down, we don't want ballot privacy. We know all of the pitfalls and all of things. I think some people be helpful. We can just get the word out on that again. This is what these are family members. That would be
So this was our topic of Friday afternoon, Facebook Live session. I tell you, I did the Wednesdays and Fridays at noon. This actual topic, we're creating a short PowerPoint where how we got to it from the map down here, and then who can drop off an application and registration card versus who can drop off the ballot. So we can simply post, I think, the slides on that we did on our website, and it does list every single close relative.
Well, one nice thing about our drop-off locations is there'll be people that will know not to take more than, their family's ballots, or if somebody comes in with a stack, they don't accept it, so.
another thing too, we have currently on our website, we have the banners that slide. I'm not sure the exact verbiage, but basically it's the rules of the Dropbox.
Okay, I haven't seen, I'll have to take a look. Thank you, Glenn.
When you click on that, and it'll take you to a landing page that gives
Details.
a lot of that kind of stuff. But definitely when the stuff goes in the mail, we have to not do more than we're currently going to get back with the media, make sure it's out there, all those reminders, so they
Great. Thank you.
So from what I'm hearing is your concern is Midwest Direct's capacity issues. It's not the post office capacity issue. Right?
That's correct. So taking a tour of the post office, I have good confidence that they can handle the volume that we're going to throw at them. And they walked and they explained a little bit more what this all clear means that we hear about people talking about. There's a specific tag, it's a red elections tag that gets put on all these trays of mail. And at different points in time, when they execute that, they go through and they're looking. And if there's a red tag, there's like, wait a second, that needs to get processed. So this is what they mean about all clear. When they're doing that on a daily basis. And just seeing the operation, it's something. It's highly automated. The equipment the equipment can definitely keep up with the volume that we're going to give to them. And they're definitely, I'm going to say that they're committed to all counties, but we can speak for Cuyahoga County. The Orange Avenue, that branch there, and that branch manager who runs there, he is committed to ensuring that all, especially in Cuyahoga County, that we are successful. We have their cell phone numbers, whatever it takes to make stuff happen.
I thank you, and I appreciate you working with Midwest Direct. We've all seen some examples of news organizations dropping ballots in the mail and seeing how soon they get there. And I think as soon as 2 or 3 days is the quickest, and it could be 6 to 10 days afterwards. I mean, I'm just looking, if we get that someone's ballot gets in the mail on the 9th, it may well be till the 16th or the 19th that they get it. Hopefully that's the exception, the outlier. But that gives them about 2 weeks then to get that ballot back. I keep us posted on that. I just, with MCI, I appreciate you guys reaching out. Any other questions or comments on that matter? Anything else, Director Parati or Deputy Director Centil? Is there anyone here for public comment, Linda, that indicated they'd like to speak?
Chairman, I did not receive any notifications from public comment.
Okay. Hearing none, then I will move to adjourn the meeting, and we'll be back here on September 28th. There's a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for your time.
Good to see everybody.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We haven't used that website. Robin's doing it out.
Thank you, Robin.
And you, just quickly, before you guys leave, if you haven't had a chance to sign the, election law that we